Right, so what's going on guys, my name's Ash and welcome back to a brand new video on the channel today. I hope you're all having a fantastic day so far. Today we're going to be taking a look at the 4-2-3-1 narrow and explaining why I believe it to be the best formation within FIFA 19. We're also going to take a look at my custom tactics, showing you what I use, why I use it, and explaining how it's won me so many games and how it will win you guys so many more games if you will understand it. But before we get into that guys, I would appreciate it if you could drop this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you are new so you never miss out on any videos like this one, and also be sure to turn on notifications so you are notified when a video is posted. And with all that aside guys, let's get into the video. So just briefly, what is it I like about this formation? Well, there is quite a lot, but I don't want to go into too much depth just because the video will be far too long. I could probably make a whole separate video on this formation alone, but this is mainly about my different tactics and stuff. So what makes this formation so great in comparison to others? Well, if you take a look at the layout, you've got a perfect balance between attack and defense, which other formations probably don't offer, because you've essentially got 4 attackers with your 3 cams and your striker, and you've also got 2 central defensive midfielders as well, which are extremely effective at defending. Now, if you're bad at defending like I am, these 2 CDMs will help you out massively because they just seem to intercept everything and make it impossible for your opponent to pass the ball through the middle. But again, yeah, this formation has the perfect balance between attack and defense, and as well as the balance between attack and defense, it also has the balance of being wide and narrow at the same time. Like if you take a look at this formation and compare it to another popular formation, which is the 4-1-2-1-2 narrow, you'll see that the 4-1-2-1-2 narrow is extremely narrow in comparison to the 4-2-3-1. So if you're playing with this formation, you have no other option than to play it through the middle, because that's where all of your players are, except maybe your fullbacks, which aren't, you know, essentially attackers. So with this formation, it's very predictable, because if you come up against that and you're playing and you're a smart player, you'll be thinking, well, if they're using this formation, they're going to be going straight down through the middle, and you'll be expecting it. So you'll be able to just, you know, camp in the middle with your midfielders and intercept their passes, and they just won't be able to get through because that's where all their players are. And if you're marking the middle, then yeah, they can't really get through, can they? But if you were to use this, you could play it narrow and you could play it wide at the same time, because these 3 cams give you the ability to do that. Like, they're not in a wide position, well they are, but they're not in a narrow position either. They can, you know, do either. I could take my right cam out, which is, it says it's 9 glim, but it isn't, I just haven't changed the positions. I could essentially take him out wide, or I could, you know, bring him into the middle. There's a lot I can do with it, and it makes it unpredictable. It makes it very unpredictable for your opponent, and they can't really understand what you're going to do, because you can just switch it up when you want. You can also play multiple different styles with this formation. You could play very possessive and keep the ball because of the layout. You could just knock it in between all of your players. You could play long balls up to your striker. You could play quick counter attacks by telling your center attacking midfielders to stay up. You could play extremely defensive by getting them to all come back and sit back in defense. You know, you have a lot of options when it comes to this formation, and the great thing about it is you can often implement all of these different styles into one game plan purely because of the layout of the formation. Like, if I wanted to play a long ball up to my striker, I could. If I wanted to play it out wide to my cam, I could, and I wouldn't have to change a lot at all. So this formation is very good in attack and defense, and is just extremely balanced overall. Like, if your opponent was, let's say, using a 4-3-3 or something, a really wide formation, it's not as easy for them to just play it down the wing as it would be in a really narrow formation like the 4-1-2-1-2, because in this formation they could just literally run down the wing and you have no players to cover that space, because look, none of your players are over there. You know, none of them are out wide. They're all in the center of the pitch. Whereas this one, you know, you have your cams which could essentially come back and stop them from doing so, and then your fullbacks could push up and also intercept them there. So you can really, you know, cut out wide formations and narrow formations at the same time because of the perfect balance that this formation offers. So that is what I like about this formation. Now let's get into my different tactics for defense, offense, and ultra offense. Okay guys, so my defensive tactics are the ones I mainly use. Like, these are the ones I will use when I go into a game. I'll switch to defensive and this is what I would have. So first off, I have my defensive style on balance purely because it's balanced. Like, at the start of a game, I'm not exactly in a rush to take the ball off the opponent. Like, I'll let them make mistakes and give me the ball back. Or if I feel like going and taking the ball, I can. And I can always manually apply pressure. It's basically saying I can do what I want when I want. I don't have to have constant pressure on and have my players running around like headless chickens to try and get the ball off them, because one, that would burn my players out, and two, it leaves you extremely exposed early on in the game, which is just completely unnecessary. I'm quite a passive player again, so balanced is fine for me. It basically means my players are happy to just get into position, you know, mark passes, but will not really put any pressure on until I tell them to do so. So that's why I have it on balanced for this tactic. It may change, and it has changed in my more offensive ones, but we'll get to that later. So I have it on balanced for my defensive ones. Now, for width, I don't like it to be too narrow like this, because obviously they could literally just play the ball down the wing and I'd be completely exposed because they could just cross it in and I'd be screwed. So by having it like relatively wide like this, it's not too wide and it's not too narrow. It's quite compact, meaning that they can't just play the ball down the wing and they also can't just play it through the middle of me. So it gives you that perfect balance which you need in defense. So I highly suggest using like a width of 6 like I'm doing, because you'll find the perfect balance. And balance is what this formation is all about. Now, moving on to depth, this is essentially how high your players will sit. Like, if you put it all the way up there, you'll see your players are literally like your defensive line is in front of their strikers, which is not good, because you could easily play them on side and you'll be screwed, like if one of your players like messes up. So by having it on about 4, you can see like they don't sit back too much while they're actually in my box. Like, they sit back, but they're not literally in my box, you know, like they're on the edge. They're on the edge of the box, which is what I like. So my strikers are just about in their half, my midfield is around the center circle, and my defense is around the edge of my box. I think that's like the perfect sort of depth, especially for like the start of a game, like I said, because the last thing you need to do when you're at the start of a game in like division rivals or foot champs is play yourself out of it in the first few minutes by playing really offensive or really defensive. Like, if you put a really high line, especially from like kickoff, they could play one ball over the top and you could concede lots of goals and it'll just lose you many games early on. Like, there's absolutely no need for it. And likewise, if I had it on there, they could literally just shoot from long range because all of your players will be sitting in the box. So 4 is the perfect balance for me in defensive, or just, you know, default tactics, what I use at the start of the game. Now, moving on to offensive styles, like I said, I like to keep this on balance because there's times where I want to speed up the play and there's times where I want to slow it down. It really gives me the option to, you know, have a perfect balance in my attack. Like, I can play quick football, I can play possessive football, I can cross the ball up the pitch. I really have a lot of different options, making it difficult for my opponent to predict what I'm doing. And I think that's very important in this formation, because if they start predicting what you're doing, you're going to come and and you're gonna, you know, start conceding possession. Your opponent's gonna, you know, get the better of you, and it's going to become really frustrating. So by staying balanced, you can really switch up your play and you know, outplay your opponent really. So yeah, I suggest having that on balance for now. Now, moving on to width in offense, it's similar to my defensive one. I don't know why I've got this one lower than that. I could just put it like that, to be honest. But by having the width on about this, it's exactly the same as what it is in defense. It's not too wide and it's not too narrow. Like, if you have it too wide like this, your players are so far apart from each other that you're going to have to literally power pass it every single time you want to pass it to your opponent, and it essentially becomes a wide formation, not a narrow one, which is what this is all about. And driven passes aren't exactly the way to go in FIFA 19, so if you're, you know, trying to pass it from side to side to just get it to your other players, you're going to literally pass the ball to your opponent because there's such a great distance between your players, and I highly advise not doing that. Maybe in about like FIFA 17 or FIFA 18, where driven passes were super powerful and accurate and first touches were good, it might not have been so bad, but in this game it's an absolute no-no for me. So again, by having it like 5 or 6 doesn't really matter, to be honest, guys. You can, you know, find which one you want. It gives you the balance where your players aren't too close together and they're not too far apart, so you can play nice short passes or long passes at the same time, and it's easier to keep possession and attack your opponent. Now for players in box, you don't really want too many players in the box. Like honestly, if, as you can see here, I've got like 2 players on the edge of the box here, and you've got 1 man front post and 1 man towards the back post. That's all you really need, because if I go ahead and overcommit all of my players into the box here, what happens is if their keeper punches the ball and gets it out of the box, all of my players are immediately, you know, put out of the game, and my opponent's got a perfect opportunity to counter-attack, and that's absolutely awful. Especially since 9 times out of 10 that's what will happen when you cross the ball. Like, you'll cross the ball, the keeper will punch it, and they'll get the ball back. That's what normally happens. So if you've got all your players in the box, you're literally exposed, and you're going to get counter-attacked. But if you have it on like 3 or 4, you can see you've got like your 2 CDMs on the edge of the box. So if the keeper does punch it, or their players do win it back, you've got those 2 players there to cut off the counter attack and potentially win the ball back and keep the pressure. So essentially having less players in the box is better for you in offense than you'd think. So I highly suggest having about 3 or 4 for this setting, because you've still got the players in the box that you need in the right positions, but you've also got the defensive solidarity that you need to stop your opponent just counter-attacking you and scoring instantly from their attacks. Now moving on to corners, it's kind of like the similar thing. You don't want it on 1 because you've got 1 player and they can just mark you, but if you have it on like 2, you've got 1 player at the near post, which is extremely broken this game. If you cross it to a player at the near post, they'll do like a bicycle kick and score like 5 times out of 10, or they'll just do a header and score. Like, near post corners are absolutely broken. So I don't suggest having this on 1 because you haven't got that player at the near post, as you can see. So by having this on, it on 2, you have players at the near post, and you've also got players outside of the box to pick up the ball if it gets knocked out of the box by their goalkeeper or cleared by their defender, so you can keep possession and keep the pressure on them. So having this on 2 gives you that perfect balance, like I said. Notice how I keep saying balance a lot. That's what this formation is about, and that's what I love about it. Now for free kicks, you can have it on 1 or 2. I really don't think it matters. I prefer having it on 1 because it covers, you know, most of the middle of the pitch for me. Like, if I have it on 2, yeah, the left side is covered, right? But if he decides to counter-attack up the right, well, my right side, then I'm screwed because he can just play it through. And by having it on 1, I've got that area covered. And you can probably see, like, these free kicks, I don't really cross them into the box anyway. I'll either shoot it or call a second man. So it really doesn't make a difference if I had this many players in the box, because, you know, I probably wouldn't cross to them anyway. So I think it makes sense for me to have it on 1, because, you know, it's good for defense. They can't just counter attack you, and yeah, like I said, I don't really cross the ball anyway. So that's it for my defensive tactics. Quickly moving on to my instructions, I'm going to explain what I have here. I just leave my striker alone. I think it's perfect for him to have that balance, because sometimes I want him to get in behind, sometimes I want him to come short, unlike previous FIFAs. So by having him just left on default, you have the option to do what you want with the striker. Now the only cam I have on stay forward, or the only cam I actually touch, is Milinkovic-Savic, who is my central cam, and I like having him on stay forward because it's like having a focal point in your team. Like, when you win the ball back, you have someone to aim for, you have someone to get the ball up to and cross it up to. Like, if I didn't have any of them on stay forward, I'd constantly be getting pinned back in my own half, and I wouldn't be able to get out unless I was very fortunate. So by having like a big talisman like Milinkovic-Savic, I can cross the ball up to him and start my attack around him, and all of my players can push up around him and I can get going. So it's very important to have one player, especially I think your central cam really, to stay forward, just so you have that focal point, someone to build your attack on, someone to keep possession, you know, someone to aim for when you win the ball back, so you don't just clear it and give them the ball straight back. I don't touch especially the wide cams, because I think it's important to have them on balance. Now, the two CDMs, I like to have them on stay back while attacking, because the whole point of these is to just cut out your opponent's attacks. That's what they're there for. That's all you need them for. And they still sometimes attack anyway. Like, there's nothing stopping you from committing them manually if you like. But by having them on stay back while attacking, they won't just rush up the pitch and leave you exposed at the back. They will always be there to intercept the ball and stop your opponent's attacks. So I think it's very important to have these on stay back while attacking. Otherwise, your whole plan will fall apart, especially when they counter-attack you. You'll just get destroyed, honestly. It's not worth it. So keep these on stay back while attacking. You can take the occasional long shot with them. You can still pass them the ball. It's just they're not very far up the pitch, and I think that's important. Now, for this tactic, I just like to have my fullbacks on stay back while attacking, just so I don't get counter-attacked down the wing, especially with wide formations, you know. It helps add that balance of attack and defense. Like, you've got enough attackers up the pitch, really, with these cams. It just stops you getting counter-attacked and really slows your opponents down. So that's what my main tactic is. That's what I'll use at the start of the game. That's my defensive tactics out of the way. Let's just confirm that. That's what I use, right? Now, moving on to my attacking one. This is what I'll use when I'm like, I don't know, 1 goal down in like the 50th or 60th minute, you know, nothing too serious, but it's getting to the point where I need to start getting the ball back and I need to score some goals, because essentially what will happen is when your opponent, you know, starts winning games, they'll start passing it around a bit more. They won't necessarily attack you as much, so you really need to start applying pressure. That's why I've added press or after possession loss, because when I lose possession, I really want to get the ball back instantly, because I need to go ahead and get the ball back and try and start another attack, because if I just have that unbalanced, my players won't actually go and win the ball back. They'll just stand there and my opponent's free to pass it around. You could also do pressure on heavy touch if you like. It's all about preference, really. I suppose you could have that. I just have it on press after possession loss. That's what works for me, because I'm quite a possessive player and I usually have the ball anyway. But yeah, that's what I use. For the width, I keep it the same as the defensive tactic, because again, I don't think that should change. You still need the balance of width and being narrow at the same time, so you can play short passes and long passes. The depth I've upped a bit, because I want my players to be a bit further up the pitch. I don't want them to be sitting back in my own half as much. You know, when you're losing games, you really need to push your players up the pitch and apply pressure on your opponent a bit more, just to get yourself back in the game. This helps me win the ball back a lot more, but obviously leaves you a bit more prone to counter attacks and balls over the top because your defensive line is higher. But I think it's worth the risk, especially when you're losing. So upping your depth will help you, you know, put a bit more pressure on your opponent and get you more of the ball, and potentially put you more in like attacking opportunities, because if you win the ball higher up the pitch, you're in a better position to exploit your opponent's defense. Now, offensive style, I still have this on balanced for this tactic, because I still think it's important to maintain your composure and structure within your team. You know, I don't think it's completely kitchen sink time where you need to start hoofing the ball up yet, especially in like the 60th minute, which is what this tactic's used for me, or when I'm like 1 goal behind. So I keep this on balance so I can still do like long balls, I can still do quick counter attacks, I can still, you know, keep the ball when I want. You know, it still gives me that balance in attack, which is important. Width again is the same as defensive, it doesn't really change. Players in box, again, I don't really think this matters, because this is probably better when you're attacking, actually, like I said, because you've still got your 2 CDMs there to win the ball back when your opponent clears it or whatever, so it helps you keep the ball. By having all of these in the box, you're probably going to lose the ball more than you're going to score, actually. So your opponent's going to win the ball more times than you'll keep it if you have that really high. So having that lower helps you keep high pressure on your opponent and keep them pinned in the box. Corners, I've upped it to like 3, just because you want to start getting more players in the box, more players for your opponent to think about when crossing the ball, because corners are broken. You know, it may give your guy on the front post a bit more space to, you know, roam around and get his head on the ball. So I've just upped the corners by 1, just to potentially get more people in the box and create more scoring opportunities from corners. Free kicks, I've just got this on 2. Like I said, doesn't really matter 1 or 2. I don't really cross it from free kicks. I'll either shoot it or I'll just pass it to a second man. I never really cross it, so that's not really changed. Now, the main thing which has really changed with this tactic is I've now got all of my cams on stay forward, and the reason I've got this is because when you're losing a game, you kind of want that quick counter-attacking style to just really hit your opponent hard when he makes a mistake. Like, if I have all these on comeback, I could win the ball back and my opponent wouldn't really reap the consequences because, you know, my players are still in my own half. I've not really counter-attacked him, but by having them on stay forward, if he loses the ball, he's in trouble because he's got 4 players coming at him, you know? He's in massive trouble. So having these on stay forward, you know, really helps you exploit your opponent's defense when he loses the ball. CDMs on stay back while attacking, it's still important to keep that control and a defensive structure, because otherwise you'll just get ripped apart. Like I said, I still have my fullbacks on stay back while attacking just to stop me getting counter-attacked myself and him putting the game further out of my reach. So that's what I have for attacking. Now, last but not least, I have my kitchen sink ultra attacking style where I have it on constant pressure because I need to put pressure on the ball. This is what I'll use when there's like 5 minutes left and he's passing it around and I really need to get the ball back to score. I'll use constant pressure because it'll be putting lots of pressure on the ball. He'll be forced into making mistakes and I'll be getting the ball more often than he is, and it just enables me to, you know, attack more. The only problem with this is obviously it leaves you very exposed and your players just run all over the place, because if you've got constant pressure on, they'll all run to the ball and he could just play you out with 1 through ball. But that's the risk you got to take when you're losing the game. Width, I've got it put up a bit because, you know, you really need to start, you know, running down the wings and stuff, really get the attack going. I don't know, it's all personal preference really, because basically when they start passing it around the back and you're using constant pressure, when they're passing it around the back, you'll notice they'll start like switching it from right back to left back, that kind of thing. So by having your width up, you can apply pressure and you won't be able to just cross the ball from side to side while your players are stuck in the middle. Depth, I have that on really high because you need to get your players up the pitch. You need to win the ball high up the pitch to exploit your opponent's defense and hit him hard on the counter attack and punish him. For offense, I have fast build up because this is the time where you don't have time to pass the ball around. You don't have time to think about what you're doing. You really just have to get the ball up there. You really have to make use of the little possession you've got, and you really have to make your opponent, you know, you really have to punish him for making a mistake. So by having it on fast build up, it will make him panic because you're passing the ball quickly up the pitch. He'll have to move his defenders really quickly and it can be difficult for them to manage. So having this on fast, you know, just maximizes your chances of getting a last minute counter attack. I have the width, like I said, similar to defense because, you know, it's important to just have that control of the pitch towards the end stages of the match when you're losing. Players in the box, I still have this on like 4 because, again, if I cross the ball into the box and he punches it with his goalkeeper, I'm not going to get the ball back because he can run it all the way up the side of the pitch and run all the way back, and I just won't get the ball back. So this gives you the control that you need. And you can just apply constant pressure on your opponent. Corners, you want more players in the box just because you need to, you know, more players in the box, more likely you'll score from a header, from a corner. Free kicks are the same, really. Yeah, you know, that's just pretty self-explanatory, really. I've explained that enough. Now, moving on to instructions, I just have my striker on normal. I have all of my cams on stay forward, similar to attacking. I still have my CDMs on stay back because I still need some players back to keep that structure in attack. Otherwise, when my opponent wins the ball, I'll just, you know, concede a goal because he's counter-attacked me. Now, I've took my fullbacks off stay back while attacking for this, purely because, you know, you need a bit of something else. You know, when you're losing the game, you need something else. So by having these on balance, you're getting more attacking options later on in the game. And if your opponent scores again, it doesn't really matter too much, and you've still got your CDMs back. So, you know, it just gives you that nice extra option in attack and can really scare your opponent and, you know, can clutch you a game. I've scored a couple of goals with Alexandro and Florenzi from this tactic, so it does work. But yeah, that's about it for this. You know, that's it for my tactics, guys. If you have found these informative, if you have found this video informative or useful, I would appreciate it if you could drop it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you are new, so you never miss out on any videos like this one. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you are notified when a video is posted, and be sure to let me know down in the comments what formation you prefer to use, whether you're going to use these tactics what I've, you know, gave you, or whether you're going to use your own, because I'm interested to see what you guys use. And yeah, that's about it for this video, guys. I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.